magnolias bloom so late. A child stands alone in fear, wishing someone would hold them near. Through the bridges of Georgia's care, they're reaching out but life ain't fair. Isolation's heavy on their hearts, praying for a brand new start. Child protectors on the line, Georgia's foster, let love shine. I see peace, you send them far and wide, across the borders where they divide. Families waiting with open arms to shield them from all worldly harm. Through the bridges of Georgia's care, they're reaching out but life ain't fair. Isolation's heavy on their hearts, praying for a brand new start. Child protectors on the line, Georgia's foster, let love shine. Oh, Georgia's foster, let love shine. Though the journey's tough, the road is long, singing out this hopeful song. Every child deserves a chance to find their home, their love, their dance. No more darkness, no more tears, just a future free. In the shadow of the peace state, where the magnolias bloom so late.
Everybody, welcome in. Can y'all hear me? We got the chat below. Brenda, give me a thumbs up. Y'all can hear me? All right, everyone. So here we are. And just give it 1 minute. Hold on. All right, there we go. So we got Herbert in the house. We got, where'd Brenda go? Okay, so I got Herbert with me. Let me add Brenda. All right, yeah. So let me get Brenda up in here. So we're on the little screen again. Sorry, y'all. But let me get the chat down here. We got the chat below. All right, y'all. So here we
Well,
are.
I'm thinking, Danielle, what I was trying to say is I don't see it up on YouTube. When
it's on YouTube. We're live. Yes, but it's on YouTube. Yes, we are live. But yes, we are. I just showed it on YouTube.
Oh, I see it. I see it now.
Let me get, okay, so welcome back to Unmasking Foster Care Corruption, y'all, okay? So where we pull back the curtain on a system meant to protect but often ends up silencing us. I'm Danielle and I'm your host, okay? Unapologetic, nice elbow skin. You like that, don't you? Unapologetic foot fetish. That's crazy, but welcome in. Welcome in, Chris. I see you down there. But we got Herbert and Brenda. We're going to go over our what we were talking about today, y'all. In my other live about the CPS workers and the law enforcement side of them wanting more protection. We got Herbert here with us because y'all know Herbert's a retired law enforcement officer, and I just want his view on this whole scenario because they're already coming out with families and hey Debbie, welcome in. So we're going to move in. Why do CPS workers often seem untouchable, shielded not only by the agencies they work for, but also by law enforcement? But really, Herbert, are they supposed to do that? Like they seem like they're untouchable or shielded, but really, y'all are out there for just to keep the peace, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so from wrongful removals and false reports to blocked accountability, y'all, we're talking about law, how legal immunity and law enforcement backing plays a role. Okay, so that's what and how people feel about it. So we're gonna have the Herbert side. If Herbert shows up at the door, we're gonna have CPS side, and we're also gonna have, hey Debbie, welcome in. Debbie says hello to everybody. I know the screen might be hard to see. Herbert and Brenda. Herbert, can you see the screen okay?
Yeah, I'm seeing fine.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
cool.
good.
So this, I mean, it always asks me when I go live for because people are scrolling through their phones, and this is, I mean, I had like a bunch of views today, so it was great. So whether you're a parent, advocate, caseworker, officer, or someone who's been caught in the crossfire, we want your voice heard. Okay, y'all. So everybody out there, here we go. So most people, and so we're gonna dive right into it. All right, y'all. So most people don't know that CPS workers have something called qualified immunity. Did y'all know that? I mean, it's a legal protection that can prevent them from being held personally liable in civil court. I think that's crazy. That's the first I'm hearing about that.
Well, that's similar to the police in this respect. If I'm being if I'm being attacked by the bad guy, and I shoot 3 times. See, three times, and I hit the bad guy twice, but one of my bullets hits a good person, then I'm under that qualified immunity where the city or the state, whichever I'm working for, will pick up that issue. I won't be, as long as it was a good shooting on my part, then the civilian that got hurt, I'm not going to be held personally liable for that. The person that's
So
going to be charged for that is the bad guy that I shot that started this whole thing.
So you're
So
saying,
if
oh
the person
wow.
dies, if that person passes away as a result of my round, the bullet that I shot, then that person that I'm shooting at, that's trying to shoot at me, is going to be charged with the murder of that person.
Really, Herbert? And that's
Yes.
so everyone that's listening on the show, you know, we talk about qualified immunity, and Herbert just clarified and cleared something up. So they are so they're protected, and it's already like built in with their job. Like they
With their
are
job,
protected
right.
in there. Yes, and it's
If you're using qualified immunity, I'm giving you an example in the police department how
right.
I'm
That's
protected.
yeah.
Now I'm not in the police department, and if somebody comes to my house and I shoot the bad guy, but then the good person gets shot across the street, then I'm going to be held civilly. I could be civilly sued.
Wow.
Hey, Herbert, I've got
Go
a
ahead.
question because I just seen this on the news a few days ago where there was an autistic kid that went out in his front yard. He was like, what did they say? Maybe 17, something like this. And he had a kitchen knife and he was like waving it around and stuff. And all the neighbors knew, I guess maybe but one knew that he was autistic and there shouldn't be any issue. But it ended up they did get a call. There was 4 officers there on the opposite side of this little short chain link fence, and all of them shot at him, not using tasers or anything like this. They were protected by the fence, and this kid is just, obviously you can tell just by looking at him that he has delays, and they all shot at him. I don't even know if this kid survived this. I forgot to, keep up on it. In fact, I should look that up.
Chris said she heard about that. So apparently it was aired, and they talked about it. Herbert, do you hear anything about that?
I've heard, maybe not that particular case, but I've heard other cases like that where there was an individual who may have been autistic or whatever, or just a person who happens to be mental. Okay, and the police would, and the person would come after the police with a knife or a gun or whatever, and the police is going to protect himself.
Yeah, but he
I
didn't come
think,
after anyone. He
right?
didn't come after anyone. They just stood 4 of them lined up in a row. They had plenty of space in between them and shot him. I just can't get over
Can you
it because
send me?
it's like,
Can you send me? Can you find the name of it so I can find it in YouTube, or I can look it up and I can see I can find out more information. I can give you answers.
all
Chris
right,
said she thinks he passed away. So
did he?
and what I heard, like when we first got him home, and like they're supposed to be, and they told us that they would have to arrest my son. I'm like, oh no, we're not doing that. Like I mean, cause my aunt didn't know what to do. She was freaking out, and they said they understand that he's an adult. So just because he's an adult, if they got called and they come out, they would have to arrest my son. I said, oh, no, you're not touching him. No. What did he do wrong? Tell me what, just because he lashed out, he didn't hurt nobody. So, and I mean, and that's, I just wanted a view on their side. And at least they were honest with me. So go Fanning County, that's what's up. They were straight up with me. So all these autistic children that are young adults that are aged out of foster care, no wonder why they end up in the system, because they're arrested for, I mean, they're aged out of the system that's definitely broken and thrown out to the real world, and all they, I mean, and they're autistic or they're special needs. I mean, could we imagine what these kids are thinking?
Well, if I could kick in and say, I think that there needs to be more training in the police academy to be able to train officers to learn how to identify a person like that, and either they handle it differently or they'll get a professional person that knows how to handle it.
Our CPS needs to also get these kids ready for the real world, because that's what, like we talked before, like life skills and stuff, because they, I mean, they really do just throw them out to the real world.
Well, you said CPS, you get them. No, the parents. See, am I correct? CPS jumps in, they take a child from a parent. They try to place that child with a foster family, right? And if they don't do that, they're going to place them in a group home. Is that correct? So CPS is really not involved when it comes to that child anymore, except for a placement. Either back with the family or with, okay, right. Am I correct to say that CPS does placement, or, I mean, they do placement either with foster care or with back to the family? Isn't that the job of CPS?
And right? And think of, and
Right.
you
So
are right, Herbert, about the family.
They shouldn't be babysitting the child.
No. And parents
Well,
also.
yeah,
But if the child,
exactly.
if the parent calls the officers or calls 911, and the kid is, just because, I mean, it all depends, but if they need more training in the CPS world, and parents, and even in the law enforcement, it all needs training, you know.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
But also more accountability as well. More accountability. We got Joe, and right, Joe. Welcome in, Joe D. How are you doing? I've training, you know, all the way around accountability, because honestly, parents should be held accountable if their children, if they have, because the child support, from my understanding, if your child is special needs and they're disabled, when they get into adulthood and they can't afford to take care of themselves, the parents are, and that's a law, I believe, here in Georgia now, because my son is, you know, special needs, and you know, they hold us liable, because the child can't, I mean, the adult child can't provide for himself, so they are going back to the parents for that. So if that's the case, then, you know, then parents need to be, some parents need to be held liable as well, you know, because if your child is disabled, how do you expect them to be out there in the real world on their own if they're going to struggle? You can't do that. They're always going to need someone to lean on. You can't just, and the parents that just throw them out there to the real world, that's just like CPS, it lets them age out without knowing nothing. You know, that's wrong. That's messed up. No?
Well, I just wanted to comment more on what Joe D is saying, because he's saying no training can fix this. It's kind of funny that he'd say that, because my husband was law enforcement specialist in the Air Force, but he was trying, once he got out, he was trying to pursue law enforcement as well, and he was advising that you know, that he would like to help with this training, like, and he also thought that there should be time limits on how long the officer is on the streets. You know what I mean? There's got to be some type of time limit.
Look at the comment Joe just put on there. He said, as long as we have no like to their actions, like they're not held accountable for their actions, cops can do whatever they want. Understood, Jody, but we're also referring to CPS workers as well. They can do whatever they want. I mean, so it's you know, we're kind of and it's unacceptable either way.
Can, but they're not supposed to. Yeah.
Just like cops, they have things. Herbert, what's your input on that? You're the
Yeah, the person that you were reading this statement, I agree with them that if the police officer is not held accountable, they're going to get away with whatever they want to get away with. I've seen
Should they, Herbert?
I've seen videos. I've seen videos of on YouTube videos where police officers were involved with CPS, and the police officer was doing all the talking. And I'm like, why is he talking? That's not his scene. That's CPS scene. And the police officer is trying to talk to the parent to talk his way for the CPS people to enter the home. And they didn't even have a warrant, but yet the cop is running his mouth trying to, explain we got to go in, we have to do wellness check, and blah blah blah. And I'm sitting there saying, no, you don't. That's not your concern. Your job is to stand there and make sure there's no confrontation between the parent and CPS. That's the job of the police at a call,
So,
not to talk to the parent. That the CPS shouldn't be talking to a parent.
so here we are. We're already going through the legal protection that can prevent them from being okay. Add law enforcement to these. They already come out to the home, and they're only supposed to keep the peace. But add to that the cooperation of law enforcement to protect these CPS workers and on removals or home visits, and you've got a system with built-in backup already, like they're qualified immunity. So automatically they got it in their heads that, oh yeah, they can. I mean, from what the whole nationwide epidemic is right now with these CPS workers and getting away with this, it's a big. So just imagine adding law enforcement to that. We can
Okay,
only
but let's
imagine
talk about what is CPS actually getting away with? You see, I think there's
removing kids
one
from the
other person.
home.
There's one other person that you guys are forgetting about, and that's the judge.
The judge.
No, the judge.
This is
The judge is the one. Listen, Danielle. CPS is not going to remove a child from your home unless they have what? A
Order.
warrant from the judge or a warrant or something, right? So CPS can't just walk in and take a child without the authority to take a child.
Are we sure?
So
Because
you got to talk about you have to bring in the judge to this picture.
Well, so
it's just
they're
like
not doing their job. They would need to be held accountable.
So they also have immunity, it seems, right?
The judge is setting it up. But the judge set it up.
Right.
Okay. If a CPS comes to the door and they have nothing from a judge to come inside, then why are parents letting CPS in?
How did they remove my son without an order? Because that was up to the caseworker.
No.
There wasn't no.
Listen. When they removed your child, did they open the door? Did they bust down the door?
Tell me that one. How did they remove him from me when I'd never had him? I did not have him at the time of his removal.
No. They got your child from somebody. So from the somebody, whether it's an aunt, an uncle, another sibling, they got the child. So who gave up the child? Who said to CPS, okay, here, take the child?
And that they should be held accountable. That would be the person that gives the child up.
That's right. And that wasn't CPS because a police officer, I'm going to ask you all kinds of questions. I'm going to say, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, listen. Okay, listen to this, Danielle. I'm trying to make it connect with your CPS. Okay, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney. If you can't afford one, then we will provide you with an attorney. Do you understand your rights? The person will say yes or no, whatever. Then we go on from that point. I said, having the fact that you understand your rights, will you tell me what did you just do? Or why did you just do what you did? Now, if the person starts talking to me, they know their rights. They know they don't have to answer. But I don't have to not ask them questions. I can say, why did you stab that person? I mean, you have the right to remain silent, but I want to know, why did you stab the person? And you should look at me and say, I'm not going to tell you anything unless I have an attorney. Then I'll just say, okay. That's it.
CPS workers have, like Joe and I get it, they have a lot of power when it comes. I mean, like, what if a judge is not available to sign that warrant or whatever? It's all up to the
then why are you? Then my question to you, Danielle, and your listeners is: if they don't have a warrant, if they don't have court order from the judge, why are you even opening the door? Even though Herbert, that's me. Even though you see me, Even though you
There
see me
are
standing there
cases.
in uniform, you don't have to open the door.
I
There
mean,
are
apparently,
cases where the parents aren't there and the kids are taken
that is
anyway.
true. Good point, Brenda. Say if they're with a babysitter or something, and they let them in.
Somebody
Or
let him
like
in.
my case, I wasn't there at all. And
And
my kids were 10 and 12. We left them for like a half hour with their
so, like, so
capable of helping themselves or whatever.
Joe just said
Well,
is he said his
that's
concern is
self-explanatory. You left them alone. You left them how should I say vulnerable for CPS or the police to pick them up. But if there was an
so.
adult in the house and the adult said, "No, I'm not opening the door unless you have a court order," the police is not going to take the door down, and CPS can't take the door down.
Well, the cops were at my
Some, I
door.
mean,
My
you never
son
know what
told
they're
me
gonna do.
that they threatened to bust the door down if my kids didn't
Fine.
open it.
So then
That's what happened in the
you
case.
step back and say, "Go ahead and bust my door down," because now they're going to get in trouble. You want to bust my
But a lot
door
of parents
down?
don't know that.
Bust my door down because I'm not opening the door unless you have a warrant. If you have a warrant, present it, then I open the door. If you don't have it, you might as well take my door down because I'm not opening the door.
Sorry,
And I tell you what, I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to lose my job. I'm not going to take your door down. If I don't have something that gives me authority to come into your house, there's no way I'm going to take your door down and lose my job.
an so if you're in an emergency situation with a CPS worker, they can remove a child temporarily without a court order, and that's what sucks. I don't want them to
That's under that's under something else. That's under eminent domain. Not imminent
imminent
domain.
danger.
That's real
Imminent
estate.
endangerment.
Imminent danger. Imminent danger. Yeah. Imminent domain is when you build a roadway through a house or neighborhood. But
And they have to
imminent danger. If they
justify
have
within like a
reasonable
certain amount of
cause,
hours.
now if they have reasonable cause to believe that that child is in imminent
Life
danger.
threatening,
Now
right?
where did that imminent cause come from? Maybe your neighbor was over at your house.
An anonymous caller or something.
Well, no, they're going to follow up as an anonymous caller. Okay. First of all, let's develop a scenario. Give me a scenario of the an anonymous caller. They call 911 anonymously to say something about your kids. What are they going to say? Give me
Oh
an
no,
example.
I'm not. No, what I was saying is they call CPS. So they say, "Hey, little Johnny, I'm calling to say that I was over at little Johnny's house, so and so, such and such, but I want to be held anonymous. That they didn't have a lot of food in the fridge, or little Johnny was dirty and didn't look like he was bathed in a couple days."
Okay,
And they
well, that sounds like little Johnny, call CPS, and little Johnny was always, how about little Johnny's always dirty and wears the same clothes 5 days a week? Let's go there.
there
He
you
doesn't
go.
look like he's bathed or clean or anything like that. And the anonymous calls CPS and says that, then I would think that CPS will be knocking at your door.
Of course, because they have to
Okay.
investigate it.
Yeah. And then you're going to say, well, I'm not going to let you in, but you know what you could do? You could bring little Johnny to the door or bring him to a window, and CPS can see that little Johnny's okay.
True.
And if they want to go further into the investigation, they have to go to a court and get an order or warrant or something. And when they get that order or warrant, they feel afraid. So they're going to call me up and say, hey, I need you to come along with me for protection. So what do I do? I go along with them.
Okay, so think about now here. Remember, they're supposed to not be biased when they go out to these homes and do these investigations. So Herbert, think about it. If they added law enforcement to that to protect the caseworker, how would that affect a parent? Because I agree with the audience, the guests, that they're concerned about this. But so if they had extra protection, but yet what about the parents and the family? Like, what if they're out there and they just show the cops? Granted, it may not. It could happen. What if they just show them? Oh, well, here's a warrant right here, and the cops don't verify that, and they kick the door in to take the kid. Because there's always bad apples out there, right? So I mean,
you're saying, let me understand that CPS comes out there with the police, but they don't have a warrant. Am I correct?
But if they show them, like, say if it was like this, if there was a stack of papers and I got my clipboard and I'm like, okay, well, you see right here, I got, and the cop doesn't look into it and actually take the clipboard and look at it themselves, which there have been scenarios like this, and the cop just went with it, and then why is he getting involved? So think about it. Just adding that extra protection for the CPS workers is, I mean, think about us parents that are concerned, because right there, adding that extra protection, it's going to, like, how many of these bad apples in the social work and the CPS world and the system that work there are going to take it to their head and run with it and retaliate on these families? That's what I'm.
Well, I'm gonna start off by saying it's negligence on the part of the police officer to not verify that the CPS personnel has the proper paperwork so we can enter the home.
But there, it happens.
Okay, now, check this out. There could be a situation they don't have any paperwork, but they want to go talk to the parent. Okay, and they tell me I don't have any paperwork. I just want to go talk. And I said, well, why do you want me to come along? Well, I'm a little afraid of them. Okay, fine. So I come along. Just to make sure there's no to make sure exactly, there's no confrontation. But once the CPS personnel says to you, the parent, well, we have to come in and see inside, I will stand and say, no, I don't think you could go in there unless you got paperwork, because I'm not going to go in there with you. If the parent decides to invite you in, that was on a part of the parent.
So let me ask you, what legal protections do CPS workers have that ordinary citizens don't? Do we know? Like, they just got...
Once they have their warrant to enter the home, now they're protected because they have a reason to enter the home. They say there's a removal. I guess that's when that comes in. But it's only going to be qualified immunity is if they have paperwork from the judge saying you can remove that child and put that child in foster care. Now I'll call the fire department and we'll take the front of the house down to get inside to get the child.
What about the recent case where the guy was out in it was like a public area having a meeting with the CPS worker and he attacked them? So I heard the news or somebody talking about they were going to offer extra protection for CPS
That's
workers.
What we're talking about.
And
that's what we're talking about.
it would, yeah.
That's what we're here to talk about. Because
but that's on a case-to-case basis. You know, it's like you just said, the guy was out in the open in a public area and he attacked a CPS person. So they want to add more police officers to protect the CPS. I understand that, but that's based on a case-to-case situation.
Well, I'm sure a lot of parents, because I just, when you just verified that they got qualified immunity right off the rip, I mean, that's built-in system with protection right there. So they're already protected. Why would they want law enforcement? I mean, my big concern is what are they up to? What's their
the protection so they don't get, they have qualified immunity, but what if they get beat up? The qualified immunity doesn't do anything for them. They don't want to get beat up.
What if the parents get beat up? What if the parents don't do what the social worker says and I mean, it's not a, you know,
the only way that's going to happen with the parent if the parent puts up a big fight with the police.
Well, what if they don't have the warrant and they try to say they do and they don't, and they don't want to do nothing?
The police is putting his job on the line. They don't have a warrant. They don't have the right to be in the house. The police shouldn't be in the house. He put himself up for losing his job.
But still, at the end, like they do whatever they want. So not just the house, the CPS workers and nation. I mean, this ain't no isolated incident. Like, this is nationwide, y'all. Like, these parents are getting these kids are removed for one, no due process, no nothing. They're just thrown into foster care, but yet they're being removed over the most pettiest of things, like no food. That's what food stamps is for. Why can't these social workers be held accountable for what they're doing? They're falsifying.
I'm agreeing with you. I agree 100%. I agree, but that has nothing to do with the police. That has nothing to do with the police.
Okay,
that part. That all has to do with. I'm just there for the protection. For protection of both. What if the CPS personnel goes off on the parent and starts to beat up on the parent? I got to pull that CPS officer off.
But what if you're not there?
And yes, and the CPS officer and the parent get into a fight. Whoa, you think
You
we're
know,
gonna get
and
called
my
in at
thing
some
is that
point?
these right, and if these CPS workers want to be corrupt like that and fabricate allegations that aren't true, they're putting themselves in that predicament when they go out to that house. And I feel as
I
though,
agree.
because they're not supposed to be biased when they do this. And if they're falsifying allegations and information that can be detrimental to that family, they should be held accountable. And you know what? Whatever happens to them, that's on them because they
They
put
should
themselves
be,
in that
yeah, they're the
situation.
ones that should be being arrested. The thing is they're talking about making, if somebody does attack a CPS worker,
But now,
that they should charge them, like if a harsher sentence is what they're
but
saying now.
like what I'm saying is with them asking for extra protection, like darn well right there, why are they asking for extra? What are you doing wrong, people? Like, come on, workers, why you got to call the police to come back you up? Like that's how a lot of parents will take it, and
Well,
it's wrong.
well, to me, it's kind of self-explanatory. You have a situation where the judge is saying that you have to give up your child, all right, and you're supposed to come down to a certain location with your child, and you don't show up. So now CPS and the police are going to come to your house to pick up the child. And the
And then
parent is very upset because naturally I'll be upset too if somebody's going to take my
right,
child.
what parent wouldn't be? I mean,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
and if it's based on false information, I mean, why wouldn't a parent act out? I
But
mean, give mom and
that
parent pop.
whether it's true information or false information is something that has to be handled in a court of law. It's not handled by me. It's between the CPS, the parent, and a court of law.
So what I'm saying is if they are asking for extra protection, if they pass this, that CPS workers, when they go to do a removal, is supposed to have the law enforcement. So instead of Herbert, I guess let me say it like this: law enforcement, instead of keeping the peace, will be on the CPS side of things. That's where I'm.
Yeah,
That's
because
what I'm. Why?
yeah,
Does
because
that
we
benefit
can't.
the parents?
I can't make a judgment whether that child should go or not. I'm not involved with that.
No,
I'm
no, no. What
involved
we're
to make
saying
sure that there's no confrontation.
but they're trying to get protection. They're trying to get it to where when y'all go out with them on these removals, that y'all are not just there to keep the peace. Y'all are there to protect them. Like so they can. That's where
If
that.
if they're going out for a lawful removal, they're going to go out for a lawful removal, meaning that's signed by the judge. Then
Right,
yes,
hold
I
on.
got to help them get that. I got to help them get that kid. Even though me personally, I would say, why are we taking this child? But the bottom line is, my job is to help CPS now to take that child out of the house. Even though deep inside of me, I'm like, I don't think we should do this. So if I don't think we should do this, I should just take off my uniform and walk away from the job. But if I'm doing my job and I got a judge order saying that we have to remove that child, then I got to work with CPS to remove the child.
What I'm asking is they're already y'all are going out there with them to keep the peace between the parent and the CPS worker. But if it turns
Yes.
into where law enforcement is required to protect the caseworker, which means it's no longer just where you're supposed to keep the peace. You are there to protect that caseworker. Like you and a lot of parents will know this if they pass that. That's what I'm is that what's your opinion like how do you feel about that? Like
That's what it
that's
sounds like. I haven't read it, but I'm just saying it sounds like the police officer would be out there to protect the CPS personnel, do their job, make sure that they're able to do their job. It's the same way as I'll give you another analogy. When you see street workers and they close the street because they're digging holes in the street, who do they have standing around? Police officers to protect the workers who are working on the street.
let me ask you this. Here, let me. This is why in the world would we abolish CPS? Okay, so for families, especially in certain communities, CPS and law enforcement showing up together can feel more like an ambush. Okay, more than protection. There's fear, distrust, and silence, and yet some believe CPS workers need that protection because of the risk of retaliation or violence on the job. Let's listen to what people in the community are saying. But how do you view the relationship between CPS and police officers in your community? Different parents have different opinions on that, different answers. And look at the comments. Peachwood, yes, I am. Because the thing is CPS workers Have you ever experienced CPS and the nightmare that's going on nationwide of kids being removed with no due process, no 14th Amendment, no nothing, and they're not being held accountable? Judges are not being held accountable. Like it's like they're kidnappers, like professional kidnappers. I mean, in Arizona, they even said they walked around with T-shirts that said "professional kidnappers. Do you know where your children are?" So I think so we're just doing a show just to get everybody's feedback and opinions on it. Like, how do y'all feel about it? How does Herbert feel about it from the law enforcement side? How does Brenda feel about it from the parent side? Because wouldn't the child? I mean, the fact of the matter is the child needs to be protected either way because they're being removed from their home, their only home. So what's bullshit, Peachwood? I would love to know what's bullshit. What are you saying? So if it's BS, what are you saying BS? Because so they're not. I mean, really, I'm ready for. I mean, hey. What is BS?
Yeah, I know. The BS, I'll tell you where the BS part to me starts. The BS part starts when, how did CPS get involved? How did the parent become a target in the first place of CPS? And here's another one. Here's the flip side. How come there are parents that are not targets of CPS? Okay? I mean, I see a lot of kids in my area, my neighborhood. I don't see CPS running around here. Okay, so my point is, how are they able to avoid CPS and not get on their radar? Then how can a person get on CPS?
Look at the
Now, I'll give you a real live, for real example of one of my neighbors across the street. She had her daughters in a park. One of the daughters fell off the swing, hurt her head. She brought the daughter that hurt her head to the hospital just to get a check. Had a little lump in the head. They just did a check. Because the hospital and the doctors are mandatory reporters, they reported that to CPS. And within a week and a half, she got a knock at her door from Child Protective Services. They wanted to just do a check, find out how the child is doing. And I asked her, because I've been involved with you guys for over 2 years. So I said, did you invite them? I said, did you invite them in? She says, yeah. She says, I didn't think there's any problems. So she invites in CPS into the house, not knowing she could become a target immediately by letting them in. She should have just opened the door. My daughter's fine. Here's my daughter. She's standing right here in front of you, and she's okay. She went to the hospital. The hospital said that she hit her head after falling. They want to make sure that she wasn't being abused at home. Now, what if CPS walked in the house and there was white powder substance and other things in the house that could be dangerous to the child? That CPS personnel will go back to a judge and say, this is what I saw, and this is why I think we need to further investigate and have that child removed. So she would have made herself a target immediately just because the child fell off a swing.
So they were biased.
So my point is that don't let them in unless they have a warrant. Don't invite them in your home. Don't let them in the home.
Michelle just had a point, and there's more comments because we got someone in the audience, the guest, that has experienced this, and they still took their kids. But there was there was a drug lab in the same apartment, but not the same her apartment, but the same apartment complex, and they just looked. That's what I'm saying. They're targeting families that aren't. There's too many kids out here that are in danger. The news, look at the news. Kids unalived every day by their own parents. There's got to be some kind of abuse. Why aren't these kids those kids need the help. The kids with not a lot of food in their fridge, why is it, the numbers here in Georgia are just absolutely insane. Like, there was more kids in foster care last year than there was at home with their families.
To me, CPS and what's going on with foster care is like an elephant in a room that nobody sees. And I was under the impression that exactly. And I was under the impression when this new administration came in, that would be one of the things that they would look into. It hasn't been looked into yet. And CPS, the things that's going on with CPS is happening in all 50 states.
Yes, it is.
Every state has issues because I did my own research.
Worldwide.
Yes.
This is a
Yes.
nationwide problem.
Oh, it's worldwide too, because look at our friends across the pond, the ones in Britain. What's going on over there? Remember, we had the Britain guys call us up and tell us what's going on. So it's worldwide.
CPS isn't kidnapping kids, Miss Peachwood, whoever's in the audience that's named Peachwood. How do you know this, and do you have facts? Because I'm a parent that has experienced this myself, and if you go watch some of our shows, you will learn, you'll see, because I mean, why would they walk around advertising on a t-shirt that they were professional kidnappers? And this was CPS workers herself in Arizona. Go look it up. It's called the Pink Ladies. I mean, and it's real life. I mean, that's a real story. And these were social workers themselves going in outside in the public, advertising shirts. I mean, you tell me what kind of thinking that is of a person that's supposed to be promoting and helping families instead of tearing them apart. And those aren't, but they're advertising shirts that say professional kidnappers. Do you know where your children are? I mean, and you're gonna LOL at us? Like, come on, that's social workers themselves that did that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely absurd, and I think that
But they're
that's wrong.
laughing.
And and I'm sure there are police officers too that feel the same way. Oh yeah, let's get these kids. Let's get these kids. I'm sure that happens also.
And she said that you're correct, Herbert. But how is she gonna? I mean, I know Brenda's heard about the Pink Ladies. I've heard about the Pink Ladies out in Arizona. We had it on the show one night, and I even did it on my other show. I mean, these are social workers that are part of this, what we're talking about right now, these removals. But they're advertising and flaunting shirts that say professional kidnappers on, and they aren't in the role. I'm sure they're not anymore, but they're in a role. I mean, what in their right mind? And yes, you can, but you can say anything. But you know what? We can say anything too, and if it's happened, it's happened. But just
Well,
because the
one of the things
definition
I
of
could
something
try-
is
Okay, Julian was saying once they get inside, they're starting to look for medicines not locked up, dirty
Yes.
dishes,
Yes.
insufficient food, and
Yes.
covered with dust, clutter, etc. And
Yes.
in my opinion, or what in our case, they, I suppose, looked for those things and didn't find them, but said it happened anyway. They better start taking pictures of what they need to do if they're going to make these allegations.
CPS
Like,
isn't
where's all the
I'll give you-
pictures?
I'll
They
give
didn't
you-
take pictures.
I could.
I'll give you an analogy. I'll give you guys an analogy for that one in the police world. I have a warrant for a laptop computer. No. I'll go this way. I have a warrant for a stolen refrigerator. Okay, and I have the right to enter your home to search for and look for that stolen refrigerator. You follow that so far, right? So I enter your home. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I enter your home and I show you the warrant. I'm looking for a stainless steel refrigerator. So I should look in areas of your house where a refrigerator sits. What am I doing in the top drawer of your dresser? A refrigerator can't go in there. So when I go into the top drawer, I see you have contraband up in there. I cannot hold that contraband against you because the warrant is for a refrigerator. Now I'm going to change it up. I have a warrant because I'm in the process of looking for a stolen ring. Okay, so I'm going to go every place of your house where there could be a ring, which happens to be a top drawer. And what's in your top drawer? Contraband. I can hold you responsible for that contraband. I can hold that against you because I'm doing a legal search for a ring. And I open up your drawers and there's a bunch of contraband. So that will be held against you. But if I'm looking for a refrigerator, what am I doing in the top drawer of your dresser?
Herbert, I can tell you, that's what I wondered when they were trying to look for me and my daughter and went to our house where my husband was, and they came in without a warrant. They just walked by, even though my husband said no, and then they were looking through drawers. And so, what you're saying is, if they found something else,
that's called an illegal search and seizure.
So look at Michelle.
That would be thrown out of court if you have the right. If you have the right attorney, that would be thrown out of court because it's an illegal search and seizure.
But so it's okay for them to do things because they know it's wrong, and it's okay for them to. I mean, the family's going to be damaged from it.
They'll do things they know is wrong, but it's up to Brenda to get her attorney to go up against the police department to prove that it was an illegal search and
Yeah,
seizure.
but what if it
Happens every
happened
day.
years ago? Like it happened like 4-5 years ago?
Well, we have to look into the statute of limitation for that situation.
So
The statutes of
Michelle
limitation,
says,
which means within a certain period of time, you could go after the police department. After that, you cannot. Now, I'll tell you
so
one, it's open-ended, and that is murder. If there's murder, it never closes. There's no statute of limitation on that.
that's right. That's right. And so for CPS to keep doing this, and this is a nationwide and worldwide, like just it's bad. And I mean, all these parents wouldn't be speaking out if it was not. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's going to lead to retaliation, and like that's what we were talking about in the other show. These are people's kids. These are our world. What's going to happen? They're going to eventually, like, what do they? I mean, they're bullies. They are bullies. It's not the system; it's the people within the system that work these roles.
Exactly. But see, since I've been with you guys, I came up with a hypothesis that it should be federal.
They say many
CPS
of
should
them
be
not
federal.
alive, many Miss Peachwood or Mr. and Miss.
No, what I'm saying is, okay,
No,
what I'm saying is, CPS should be like the TSAs at the airports. Whatever you encounter at a TSA at one airport is going to be the same at another airport. But in the CPS world, every state is different. What they do in Georgia is different than what they'll do in Maine. What they do in New Mexico is totally different from what they do in Arizona.
But think about it. Nationwide, we got parents speaking out, and it's all the same thing.
No, yeah. And Michelle said for CPS to keep doing it will lead to retaliation. People's kids are their world, right? Exactly.
Well, tell Michelle. Oh, Michelle's listening to me anyway. Michelle, it has already happened in Arizona. Yeah, I forget she's listening. In Arizona, there was a guy that his children was taken away, and he actually was going to strangle out the CPS person on the video. And if you go to YouTube and look up, I think they call it DHS in Arizona, but if you look up parent attempted to kill CPS or DHS personnel in Arizona, you'll see the video. You'll see the video of him trying to strangle the CPS person. You'll see it. It's on there.
So here's Julian saying once they get inside, they start looking for medicine, not locked up, dirty dishes.
Yes.
So it's like they try to dust, clutter. So they try to find excuses for all this stuff.
They're not just looking for medicine. They're looking for anything that could be of danger to the child. It could be sharp knives at a low level where a child can get to. Okay. It could be something as simple as roach spray. Okay, but it's on the floor and a child can play with it. They're gonna look to the house for anything and everything.
Right. And but the thing is there's more false things, fabricated reports made, and because the statistics, the numbers show it. I mean, the last let's see, abuse and neglect reports investigated by CPS last year in Georgia was 33,746. They removed so there was more kids in foster care last year than there was at home with them. They did not offer these family services or nothing. They kept them in foster care based on neglect. And neglect is so broad, but it says right here that 15,650 of those were made up reports. So why are they doing this? They're false. They're
false. If they're false and they can get away with it, they're going to try to get away with it.
Nationwide problem.
Yeah. But we have to look at every case. I mean, you have to look at individual cases.
Right. But for a nationwide issue, but the numbers are showing I mean, come on, in Georgia, the reunification number declined 64% here in Georgia, and that right there, so that the numbers are showing that there's no reunification, but they keep removing.
So my thing to you my thing to you, Danielle, and to your listeners is why isn't this current administration getting involved well, what's going on with Child Protective Services?
Right, right, and that's what a lot of us can ask. But what the reason why this show was, I guess it went a different route, guys. Sorry, but because there are CPS workers out there that are asking for more the protection of the law enforcement on their side when they go to these homes. And I just wanted the advice or the views of y'all and law enforcement yourself on that side from Mr. Herbert here. So that's why I brought the show tonight. But I'm glad that we are out here talking about this because it can be viewed in so many ways. You know, you got that these cases that it all points down to, are they looking out for the best interest of the children? But law enforcement on their part, how do y'all feel about being extra protection when they're already protected when they go out to do the removal, Herbert? How would y'all feel when y'all have to be there for them, not to keep peace? You have to be there, and you're on
I'm
the
just there.
CPS side.
I'm just there to make sure they don't get hurt.
But they're already
They know
protected.
what their job
They're
is.
doing things right.
I'm not involved. I'm not involved with their job. Their job is to deal with you as a parent. My job is
Right.
to make sure they don't get hurt. That's all. My job is to make sure they don't get hurt.
So that's what it'll be like if they were to
Or
ask for protection.
I'll flip it around to make sure that you don't get hurt by the CPS
There you go.
person.
So if they base it on just the CPS worker, and you're not there to protect the parent, if they pass this whatever the caseworkers are asking for, how do you feel about that? Let me say it that way. What you just said.
So
Like
in
you
other
won't
words,
be, you'll be there.
in other words, there wouldn't be okay. It'd just be a CPS person going to the door without law enforcement. Is that what you're saying?
No, you'd still go out there. You would be out there, but you would not be keeping the peace and making sure both of them don't beat crap at each other. You'd be out
No, if
there
I'm
just
out there,
for the
I'm gonna
protection.
be out there to keep the peace, to make sure that there's no confrontation.
But they're trying to get it to where law enforcement has their back, is what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying?
Well, I think I got their back if I'm out there to make sure there's no confrontation. What if a parent comes to the door with a shotgun and says hello and has a shotgun in their hand and says, "What do you want?"
Well, I mean, that's true. But if you're out there and nationwide and they pass this for parents are on your own when the CPS worker comes to your door, and the CPS, there's like I said, it's an open-ended question that we're never going to know true answers to because
Yeah, but
case by
I'm
case
not
is different.
hearing anything different than has been going on for years, where police officers accommodate a
That
company,
won't be
a
on the
company,
parent. That will
a
not be there
company
to
of
protect the
CPS.
parent.
So I don't know.
You will only be
No,
there
I'm
for
saying,
protection of the CPS worker is what they're trying to do. And if they've already got the built-in system with they're
but
already
but
if they're doing
but it's
everything
always
correctly.
but it's always been that way, Danielle. So I don't see. I'm trying to figure out
Look at
what's
that way.
changed. I'm trying to figure out
What's
what's changed. That's what I'm trying to figure out because
Leah's
that's
law?
how it
Leah's
always
law.
been.
You know what Leah's law is? Leah's law. I saw a video on it.
Le-
Well, then they removed
Liz,
my comment though. Leah's law. Anybody ever heard of Leah's law? There's too many laws. We don't need any more laws, right, Joe? Right. And Leah's law refers to several distinct pieces of legislation. Hold on. Let me make sure this is the right one. I think it's Leah's law. It's where a caseworker was going on and they were, I forgot what, but I forgot what state it was in. I saw it today. But it's about them. Well, now it's not even coming up. But anyhow, the caseworker got attacked or whatever. A caseworker stabbed, and Leah's law will require more police officers to be assigned to human services. Hold on. And this is 2015. Leah's law, this was in New Jersey, okay? So it was for caseworkers. I guess she was stabbed, but they're not trained to stop a mentally ill person from killing someone. That's what they're saying. Let's see, let's go down. They would require more police officers to be assigned to human services and stationed at offices. Police would accompany workers on potentially dangerous home visits, and also panic buttons would be installed in meeting rooms. That is Leah's law that is passed in New Jersey. But the way that they're trying to perceive it now is something to where the law enforcement would automatically, like, right up the rip, have their backs. Because, yes, Jonathan, Leah's law. I've
Okay,
never had
and
an
Danielle, what
alias
I'm
for the law
saying is
firm,
you're
so
not
I'm
you're not
listening.
saying anything. Okay, Danielle, you're not saying anything different than has been happening. The CPS has been contacting law enforcement in all states when they feel that I don't feel comfortable going to the house by myself. So they call law enforcement.
That's
They get an
understandable.
officer or two
But
officers
now
free.
they're wanting to put
And
them in the offices and in like, you know, if I guess like I said, it's an open-ended question. We're never going to know the answer because we never know the thinking of the CPS worker, let alone the parent. You know what I mean? You never know what mental.
I've been with your show for over 2 years, and the thing is, with Darren, the Darren show, and I've looked at lots and lots of videos, and of the videos I've watched, I've seen situations where the officer should have kept his mouth shut. It was none of his
Right.
business. His job is to stand there and make sure there's no confrontation. Okay, I've seen situations like that. Okay, I've seen situations where the parent went off on the CPS personnel, and then the officer jumped in to try to protect the blows between the parent and CPS and try to calm the situation. I've seen videos like that too. So I don't understand what has happened new. That's what I'm trying to say. It's always been where CPS, if they feel fear, threatened, or whatever, doing their job, they would call
Doing
police.
their job.
That's why I said it
Doing
goes
their
back.
job.
That's why I said you got to introduce the judge because the judge started this thing. The judge made this happen from the beginning. I'm sure it
People would
happens
said you
to
can
your
always think
listeners.
that
That
kids get separated from the parents for breaking the law are also kidnapped. Clarify that, Peachwood, because I've been on
yeah.
both sides. My kids were
Say
not
that
taken
again.
from me. My kids were placed with family members when I got in trouble and I went to prison.
Yeah.
And the judge left it up to me and my family to decide what to do upon my release. And it was like that for over a decade. My mother passes away unexpectedly. She was the guardian of my son. And they butt their nose in something, and I never got to go back in front of a judge to get my son. He was automatically sent to another state away from Georgia. And that's that would be definitely kidnapping because I mean, how are you gonna? My mother passed away. That's my son should have been in my care.
Yes.
There's a so and I mean, so that's not wrong. I mean, if an order was in place until my son was 18, he was 6 months away from being 18. But because of my son wasn't even in my care at the time, I showed up to pick him up and
No.
get him at my family's home, and he was
No.
taken.
But in your case, if a family member didn't get involved, didn't get CPS involved, your son would still be with your family member.
They would be with me. He would be with
Is that
me. Yes,
no,
that's
no?
correct.
Let's say you were out of the picture, and that
He would
family
still
member
be
you're
with a family
referring to,
member.
yeah, the family member turned in your son.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So I mean,
CPS, CPS
that was
wasn't
kidnapping.
CPS. You were not. Your son was not on the radar. You were out. You were off on vacation, and your son wasn't even on the radar, and your family member caused that to happen.
Just out of pure spite.
And just the person that you were reading before, who said that they place the children with a family member. That happens a lot. It happens a lot. And police officers in
it's
situations
true.
will
You're
place the
so
children with a family member, with grandma. Was there grandma, grandpa, is there aunt or
and
uncle?
uncles, cousins, and now in
Yes,
Georgia they will put them with some friends. If the friend, I mean, I've
yes,
seen a
yes.
child that the dad that was not her biological father. The child had no family, no mother, no father. They both had passed at different times. And do you know the dad that was part of this child life with no blood, no relation at all? Well, stepdad, I say, but they were not married, and he stepped up and he got the child. So it's I applaud people for like that are giving these children a chance to be out and have a home and everything instead of in foster care. Foster care should be the last resort. The last resort. And in my situation, it was the very first. Like no ands if or buts, no chance. They're supposed to exhaust all reasonable efforts and reach out to family because if they would have went by the correct court order, the one that was in place until my son was 18, My son would be with
I'll
me.
be right back.
I mean, well, and we had to go 2 years of we had to go to Texas to get him and bring him back with us. They kept him out away from me for 2 years in a residential treatment facility. But yet they're gonna butt their nose in 6 months before he turns 18 when there was a court order in place. That I guess and he's home. Did they fix the problem, Donovan? You say that nothing happened, but it was still a lot to deal with because of that time I had already lost everything and I was going to lose my kids. Veronica said, yeah, that's all we're just going by. We're just talking, y'all. That's all we're doing. We're talking about the things that could be going on. But this is a nationwide problem, y'all. A nationwide problem. Parents in every state are speaking out with the same dilemma. Why are these CPS workers allowed to bully up on families? If this is a system built to strengthen families, promote independency, and try and get if there's a case and they investigate it and they find some whatever that they do, why not provide the services for that family instead of just removing the kids and putting them in foster care? That's what I don't understand. But law enforcement side,
Danielle, you froze. You froze up. Hey, Danielle, you froze up. Can somebody type to Danielle and tell her that her picture is frozen? Or maybe it's not frozen, but it might be frozen on my side, but I see her as frozen. So if you could type to her, because obviously she can't hear me. Okay, now it's just me. So I don't know what happened to Danielle. She'll probably come back on. She asked me to come on to speak to you guys about the interactions between Child Protective Services and law enforcement. And I could just say that our job basically is to make sure there's no confrontation while Child Protective Services is doing their job. I don't take any side. I don't say that they're right, they're wrong. I don't say that you're right or you're wrong, because it's up to the judge to decide on what's going to go down. And that's why I don't know why we don't introduce or bring in issues about the judges and decisions that they're making. I believe that the judges are the ones that make that decision, probably in conjunction, in cahoots with CPS. So if they come to your house and they say they see certain things that's not really true, and they report that to the judge, and he believes the CPS person, and they write up a warrant to take the child out, well, that's where CPS and the judge are in cahoots with each other. But I have nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing. I can't make a call. I can't say, oh, CPS, you're wrong for doing that. I can't do that. Let me see if I can read some of the questions. Let me see some of the things I see here. Because you are a good person, Herbert. No, it's not so much that. There's a lot of good Herberts out there. If somebody else could type, I know you're listening. So I need somebody to type, then I know you're on, because I have no controls of this show. I just know that Danielle froze up. And okay, the parents are the ones making the decisions to abuse or neglect their children. Good point. The parents are the ones making the decision to abuse or their children. That's a very good point. Peachwood. I was a single parent for 18 years because my daughter's mom chose drugs, and she played the victim also. I'm sure that happens in a lot of cases. There's a lot. Out in the streets right now, there are so many people who are homeless, and with the homeless people, they have children. You see, and then CPS is going out there trying to gap together the situation between the homeless parent and the children, and who suffers? The child. The child ends up into a group home, separated from the parents, that ends up into an adult home. And this is happening in every state. And what I don't understand is, what is this administration doing about it? I'm not hearing anything on the news about CPS, not a word, except for if a CPS person gets attacked. I hear about that. But other than that, I don't hear anything. So thank you for bringing that up. Is it Peachwood? I think that's the name I see here. Again, I don't have any controls from my perspective. I can only read things that you guys type down here. The kids always lose in the long run. That's very true. In the total long run, they lose, because especially take a child that's 2 or 3 years old, and they're taken away from mommy or daddy. I mean, that's got to be horrible for that child, because all they know is their family and their parents, and they're put with strangers. That is awful. And God forbid that child stays with the foster system until they're 18 years old, and they release. I mean, they're going to end up in my hands again, because they're going to be juvenile delinquents, because they're going to do things and I have to go pick them up now. So a lot of times when police pick up individuals, kids off the streets for either stealing or causing vandalism, or fighting or hurting things or whatever, I mean, it started off from the time they were a child, taken away from their parents. Although I have a little idea I want to share with you guys, if you're listening to me. I was thinking that when you have a child, if you could, like it's like a pre-plan. Tell me what you think about this idea. You have a child, you get the saliva from the child, put it in a cup, put a name on there, send it to Ancestry. The child could find you, and you could find that child, because it's going to pop up on Ancestry. I thought about that idea. I mean, you're not planning on losing your child when you have them. You're not planning on that. But if something does come down, at least you're in a nationwide web where you may be able to find each other. Okay, people like that lady want to blame the system and not the reason why they were put in the system. It's a very good point. They did something to cause themselves to go in the system. That's why I mentioned earlier that, I do know. Yes, Debbie, I know Danielle's story. I do. I know it very well. Danielle and I have spent hours on the phone together. So I just want you to know, Debbie, I do know Danielle's story. Yeah, you do too, right, Peach? Okay. Jonathan says, we can all ignore the fact that the kids are taken away for a reason. The government is not just snatching kids. No, the government's not just snatching kids. Something put that child and that family on the radar for CPS. That child was put on radar. Well, not the child, but the family was put on radar, and the child was the victim, taken away from the family. Peachwood, no, you're saying she just shared her story. Are you referring to Danielle? Danielle just shared her story? Oh, Debbie, you're talking about Peaches just shared her story. Is that what you're saying? Let me see if I can understand this right. I was talking about Peaches. That's what Debbie's saying. Something equals the parents, says Jonathan. Received 100 messages today with the stream chat. I don't know what those messages were about. Peach, I understand you said yes. Hey guys, since I'm only on here now by myself, I'll hang in there with you. If you have any questions, just ask me. I don't have any buttons to push like Darren and Vinny and Danielle and Gunnar and Brenda, but I can answer questions if you have. One thing I like to bring out is a lot of parents, they have to work, and they may have to leave their little children home with a babysitter. Well, make sure that you have a babysitter that's okay. Brenda says Danielle has been kicked out. Okay, Brenda, if Danielle's kicked out, how come I'm still in? I believe I'm still talking to people. Brenda, can you hear me? How does she get kicked from her own live show? Hey, that beats me. I would think that if she was kicked from her show, I would be gone too. And if you guys are still seeing me, her show is still alive. Her show is alive and well. She just has to reboot her system to get back in again. I mean, I've been not booted out, but maybe something with the Wi-Fi happened, and I had to reboot myself back into the show numerous times. Actually, this is the first time I've been on the show just by myself. It's a hard question. Then left. She was facing hard question, then left. Yeah, I know it's a laugh. I had just left myself the scene. I sat down, and next thing I know, she was frozen. So I really believe she has to reboot. And Brenda, if you can hear me, would you call Danielle on the phone and tell her to reboot herself back up to get back on the show? Brenda, if you could hear me. Because I can't call her, because then I would have to leave the show in order to call her. Accountability is hard. It's hard. It's hard, especially when you're around your family members, and you know everybody is your family. This is relatives are saying, "Hey, you know, how come you didn't go have your kid? And where's our little nephew, our little niece?" And it makes you feel bad. And a lot of parents don't want to talk about it, and that's where families break up, because the other family members play the blame game, which is, well, if you did this and if you would have listened to me on that, you would have lost your child, you wouldn't have lost your children to CPS. And that's kind of hard on parents to hear that from other family members. Okay, Peachwood, think about it. She didn't mention the kids once. Who are you referring to? Who didn't mention the kids once? Danielle or somebody else? Who are you talking about? She complained about the unfair treatment of the parents and not the kids. Well, the kids, I mean, just reading what you're writing here, I'm not hearing where the kids did anything wrong. And besides, the kids can never do anything wrong if they're under 18, because the parents are responsible for them. I've picked up kids doing stupid stuff, and I'll either bring them down to the station house and have the parents pick them up, or take the kids to their house and tell the parents what happened. Oh, Danielle. Yeah. Well, Danielle, as you know, Danielle has taken a few vacations, a vacation, and she was off the scene for a while, and her family was taking care of her kids. And one family member just threw her son under the bus. I'll put it that way. From what I understand, from what Danielle told me. Sympathy for parents who are being investigated by CPS. Yeah, I hear what you're saying about you have zero tolerance or zero sympathy for that. But a lot of times your neighbor is upset with you because you play loud music or whatever, and they're going to get back at you by saying that you're harming your children because they know CPS is going to come out and harass you. It's the truth. We, as officers, we come out on calls where an anonymous call comes in that there's a woman screaming in the house, screaming for help in the house. And we'll come out 4 or 5 police cars and surround a house to see what's going on. And that was a false report, which, by the way, now is a misdemeanor. So if it's found out that a neighbor is falsely reporting an incident, they will be charged with a misdemeanor. That's happening statewide, all states. I don't know, my parents never went to prison, but I thought that was kind of an idea. You have kids, you know, prison or lose your kids. Right. You don't go to prison, you don't lose your kids, but we don't know what people's circumstances are and, you know, why they ended up in prison. You have to go through it, totally understand what they put people through. Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. I have been through it. I guess Debbie and Peach are talking to each other here. But what you guys mentioned earlier about you got to know the whole story. You know, if you only hear one side of the story, that's all you could go with. But if you hear both sides of the story, you can then make a decision on what's going on. But I just know there are parents that never, ever have any issues with CPS whatsoever. And my question is, how come they don't have issues? And then there's a lot of parents that do have issues. So obviously there's something wrong with this whole picture. Because there's a lot of parents that don't have any problems with CPS. They have kids and they're not responsible enough to stay out of prison. Meaning, Jonathan, you mean that the parents are not responsible enough to stay out of prison and they have kids. Right. But then they'll yell and scream that the system is hurting them and the kids, but they're not staying out of prison. That's how I read that. Okay, Peach, you said your daughter was taken because of your mom, and you had to go to court to get her back. So your mom, I guess, threw your daughter under the bus. That's how I see that. I think what she did was great. Yes, what Danielle did was great. What the state of Georgia did is confusing to me because they have facilities in Georgia that can handle her son. And why did he end up in Texas is beyond me. I don't get that. I mean, Georgia is a big state. And you're telling me that Texas is the only place that can take a case like Danielle's son? I have a hard time understanding that. Then if you go to jail on false charges, you have to get an attorney to prove that the charges against you were not correct. You could be charged with something. You plead not guilty. And if you have a jury trial and they find you guilty based on the evidence and based on the information they have, then you have to get an attorney to show that they're wrong, that the evidence given to them was wrong. I'll give you an example of that one, which the whole world knows about, and that's the O.J. Simpson case. With O.J. Simpson, if they didn't ask O.J. to put on that blood-soaked glove, the blood-soaked glove, with another surgical glove, then he probably would have been found guilty. But since that glove didn't fit, of course it's not going to fit. The glove shrunk up because of the blood, and then they're going to put another plastic glove on his glove so they don't poison the evidence. That glove is not going to fit. So I think that's an analogy to what you were saying before. Peach, I know you don't blame CPS, but there are situations where CPS do fabricate information because they're working hardcore to try to get that kid away from the parents for whatever reason. And I do believe that the CPS do make up stories and say things to like stick it to the parents, if that's a nice way of putting it. They're just sticking it to the parents.
Herbert, you're still in here?
Yeah, I'm still here. Everybody thought you froze out. I know you didn't freeze out
Who are you
because
talking to?
I wouldn't